was in the back for the last 25 years. And we have two wonderful children. My daughter Michaela is a junior at Champlain College in Burlington, Vermont. And my son is a freshman at Gettysburg College. And so we are empty nesters, but it doesn't seem like us because we've been on the campaign trail ever since. So, like I said, an amazing journey. But so a little bit about my background: 27 years of federal law enforcement. I was a special agent with the United States Customs Service for 15 years, and then another 12, a little more than 12 years with the Department of Defense. I've gone from a tactical law enforcement to investigative to executive, so I've seen kind of the big picture. A couple of the bigger positions I've held was I was the Department of Defense liaison to the 9/11 Commission after the tragedy of 9/11, and then I also was a program director for national security for the Department of Defense, oversaw over 400 special agents working criminal investigations, protecting our country. And on my military side, I have 20 years with the U.S. Navy Reserve. I'm a combat veteran. I've served into Iraq, and I've been to Korea, and I've been in several senior positions at the Pentagon. Recalled 5 times as a reservist, so hopefully they're done recalling me. And, I'm also the commanding officer. I will be the commanding officer in November for my reserve unit in Rome. So what does all that mean to running for sheriff? What that means is I have a different lens, a different perspective. I've seen the big picture. I've been around the country, around the world. But Syracuse and Central New York is home to me. We live in Manlius, so we've been here about 22 years. So this is where Catherine and I plan to spend the rest of our days, and maybe a little bit of time in Florida in the winter. But for the most part, this is home, for the big part, this is home to us. So really, the reason why I'm running is to make a difference in the lives of people in this county. And I'm going to tell you something that I know all of you have been paying attention to. We're a county in crisis. And when I say we're a county in crisis, what I'm talking about is what to me is, and I'm not even know statistically what this means, but when every day I'm hearing about a 12-year-old being killed, it bothers me. It bothers me a great deal. And this is not just a city problem, this is a county problem. We almost had a quadruple homicide in DeWitt. Turned out to be a double homicide, fortunately, but still as much of a tragedy that it is. The most important thing is that we're at a position where we have to stop the violence. And one of my goals, and today me and my team got together and we looked at ways that we are going to help stop that violence. The number one thing is coordination, collaboration between all law enforcement agencies in this county. But it's not just law enforcement. It's also working together with community leaders. There's people in the community that are trying to stop the violence. And so this is going to be so important. As we move forward to the election, this is the difference that I bring that my opponent has not been able to do in the last 4 years. It's going to be more status quo of what he's been doing. We need somebody who's present and who's going to be there. A couple of the other concerns that I have is we have the Onondaga County Justice Center, which in February was rated by the Commission on Corrections, which is the regulatory agency that oversees all jails in all 62 counties in New York, that said it's one of the top 5 worst facilities in New York. It's deplorable conditions, it's overcrowded, it's understaffed, poor access to medical care, and I'm even hearing from parents who their children are actually in the facility. And you got to remember that this is people who have not yet been convicted of a crime, or may not even be convicted of a crime. These are people that are awaiting trial, awaiting disposition. So these are people who are innocent until presumed innocent until guilty. So, or less guilty. But my point of all this is that we have to look at it from a standpoint of when you have a facility that's rated one of the top 5 worst, you have to take care of these things. You have to look at what are the standards that the state's requiring and make a difference. But one of the things that one of this mother told me is that her son's 285 pounds and is getting a piece of bread and a piece of ham for lunch. It's like, we're not, you're not trying to create a 5-star hotel here, but you are trying to make sure that when people go into your facility, that you own them. You have to take care of them. You have to clothe them, feed them, and protect them, and also make sure they have access to medical care. So these are some of the problems we're facing there. When we're talking about Jamesville Correctional, which came under the sheriff's authority this year, there's a problem with pay parity. The corrections officers that work at Jamesville making an average of $11,000 less than the ones that work at the Justice Center doing the exact same job with the exact same training. So this is something that nobody's paying attention to. My opponent basically said on September 20th to the county legislature that he was telling the county legislator that he's been talking to officials over at the Jamesville about improving efficiencies. Well, my first question is don't those people belong to you? And the second one is, what efficiencies? It's yours. Do something with this. So this is a big concern to me. The other thing I'm deeply concerned about is safety of our children in our schools. There's 225 buildings in this county, school buildings in this county, and I believe in an SRO program, but we don't have 225 officers to pull off patrol to do this. There are municipal departments, and some of the municipal departments are putting school resource officers there. But if we look at some different options, like putting retired law enforcement officers who will be given, who have the training and the police certifications already, they retired, they have a connection to the school, maybe their children or their grandchildren are there. They have this investment in the school and they want to protect the schools and be there to make a difference. But I will be able to use what's called the Special Deputy Program, which is basically, if you think of your old Western movies, where the sheriff forms a posse and deputizes people, the same law we still have today, so the sheriff can do that. But instead of it being a political favor, why don't we take that special deputy program and put it into where we really need it, and that's protecting our schools. And Assemblyman Sturpey is looking to raise that to $50,000 a year that these retired law enforcement officers can make if they're on a state pension. So this is going to save school districts or the county an average of another $50,000 a year, because it's about $110,000 to put an active law enforcement officer in a school. So the last thing I want to talk about is the opioid crisis. What we have is a situation where Onondaga County has led the state of New York for several years at the highest number per capita of overdoses in all New York State counties. This is something that we cannot arrest our way out of this problem. We cannot. We have to do it a different way. We have to work together as a community, but we need more of a holistic approach. We have to continue to disrupt and dismantle the criminal organizations that are providing these poisons to people who are addicted. But at the same time, we need to look at working with addiction experts and the medical community and mental health professionals to help try to get people off opioid drugs. And when we do that, we will reduce the supply and reduce the demand and hopefully save lives. So a lot of big issues, but these are the things that really concern me. I'll be certainly glad to be here for however long we're going to be here tonight and answer your questions. But also I want to talk more about the campaign. What I really need, and the hard part, is the sheriff's race is always the kind of people go, oh, do we elect a sheriff? Yeah, you have for the last couple hundred years. But help me get my name out there. We have a lot of signs, so please take a sign if you could put that on your yard or a friend or something like that. So the other things that all of us need as candidates is we need your time. We need any sort of donation is greatly appreciated. There's a couple things left that I'm trying to do, and money's getting tight. I'm trying to get radio on there because I know my opponent's going to hit TV and radio, and I'm more been into out talking to people, and I know he is not. So any little bit of that could help, and of course your vote and telling other people about the race. So, but thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Are you not concerned with the school resource officer question about the school to prison pipeline stuff?
Okay, so what I'm concerned about, this is the thing that I believe that when we put law enforcement officers in our schools, a lot of times people in law enforcement, and I've seen it for most of my career, we get rated on our arrests, indictments, convictions. If you're a school resource officer and you're going to school, that sort of mentality is out the window. What I'm concerned about is being a mentor or true resource to help protect the school, but also help these kids, be the people they really want to be. Because what we're going to be faced with is a situation where we got to stop potential violence or potential problems from happening early on. So we're helping these kids out and really being that true resource for them. When you're talking about school to prison pipeline, it's a perspective of, I think, some other school districts have, where it's more of a mentality of like policing within the school. I'm not looking at it from a policing standpoint. We're looking at it from everybody goes right to the most traumatic situation, and you want to have the right people available there, but you want more of the intelligence of information. And coming from as an intelligence officer in the Navy, the more information you have about things, the better. Not one kid in any school is not known by somebody in that school. So if a teacher goes and says, this student is having a problem, but I've got 30 kids, 8 times a day, and I can't really deal with it, you go to a school resource officer and go, okay, let's talk to them, maybe find out what's going on at home, because maybe they're having the kids' parents are going through a divorce, there's problems like that, where you actually work with what the situation is. A school resource officer is not there to solve all problems. We need more support from counselors, mental health professionals, but he or she could help point in the right direction. So this is more of a mentorship approach, and but not approach where I also intend to that if the rare occasion happens, and I hope it to be a rare occasion, when somebody in the school needs to be arrested, that's where a situation where it's not the school resource officer, it's going to be, you're going to bring patrol there to come look at it, or the detectives to look at it. So that person's going to be working for the school.
But they are armed, to be clear. These mentors would be armed.
They are law enforcement officers, so we would be putting law enforcement officers. And you got to remember, if you're looking at it from the standpoint of a Columbine, a Parkland, a Sandy Hook, you want somebody there who's trained and armed and be able to understand what the circumstances are in order to, when the rest of the folks that come in, if we're going to put law enforcement officers in the schools, they have to have all the tools of being a law enforcement officer. And now you got to remember, there's 18 school districts, so there's going to be 18 different superintendents that I'm going to be having to talk to about this, and every school has a different perspective. But it's still a lot to protect, and this is a big county. Yes?
Do you feel that bail reform has a role to play in reducing jail overcrowding?
Yes, as a matter of fact. So I've been with the judge candidates for about 9 months now, and every time this question comes up, I'm saying, judges?
Where's Limpert?
There's 9 options, judges, so let's not crowd my jail if you don't have to. So yes, so I would like to see more of that. I've been just reading about California that went to a no bail option. I'm interested to see how that plays in that state. About are they going to go from where they're going to hold people that ordinarily they may have given a bail option? I don't know. That's the other argument they're talking about. But certainly, I've had a retired judge talk to me a few months ago and said that when I was on the bench, my folks showed up. I released them on their own recognizance, and they showed up. And a rare occasion, he said, it was like 2 times in my time on the bench where I had to issue a bench warrant. So that's the sort of perspective that I want to see. Of course, if they're a danger to the community or a flight risk, that's, but this is something that I'm going to be looking for the judges for answers on. So.
Okay. All right. Thank you.